Hi, welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David.
I'm Stefan.
And today we're going to be looking at all the multicolored, artifact, and lands in Kaladesh.
Yeah, the last of the set. And we're looking at them and evaluate them for limited, so draft or sealed.
Yeah, so the way that we evaluate them, that's in our 3-tier system. And by now you should really know what it is, but let's go through it real quick. Tier 1, those are our limited bombs. Those are your unconditional removals that are going to be winning you the game. Then we got Tier 2. Those cards, if you got a couple of those, well, that pushes you into that color. And if you're already in that color, then those are auto-includes. Tier 3, good fillers. You know, if you need some 2-drops, some 3-drops, just fill out your curve with the Tier 3 cards. And the rest, we're going to put those aside. And the cards we're not going to put aside are the commons. So let's have a look at those. We're going to start with Inventor's Goggles. For 1 mana, we get an artifact equipment, which gives equipped creature +1/+2, and with equip cost of 2. It has an additional rule, which states that whenever an artificer enters the battlefield under your control, you get to attach this guy to it for free. Now, you may think, but there's a lot of artificers, and then I can get it for free. Well, the benefit is just so small that I would say don't even bother trying to get it and put this card aside.
Yeah, and the next one, Prophetic Prism. 2 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you can draw a card. For 1 and tap it, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So it replaces itself and you can filter your mana, but only once. And that's not enough. If you really need a lot of colors, then this is a decent card. But we're probably playing 2 colors anyways, and then it's not important enough.
Exactly, agree 100%. Next, we have Sky Skiff. For 2 mana, we get a 2/3 artifact vehicle with flying and crew 1. Now, this is the card that we looked at in our white video, the first one. So we were talking about what is a vehicle, how does it work? And this one is actually, I think, a really strong one because that crew 1 means that pretty much every creature except for a 0-power creature will be able to crew it. Turn 2, it's going to come in, and then turn 3, you can pop down any creature whatsoever, crew it, because after all, you can crew a vehicle with a creature that's got summoning sickness, and then attack with a 2/3 flyer and on turn 3, which I think is really strong, or block with it.
Yeah, I just really like it because it's only crew 1, it's a 2/3 flyer, so it can block anything early game.
Yeah.
So that's really nice.
Yeah, as a surprise, of course, because people don't know if you're going to turn it into a vehicle, because of course it's not a creature until you crew it.
Yeah, and that's what's actually really interesting about crew, because it survives board wipes.
Absolutely, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, the sorcery speed removals are going to be hard to use to target vehicles.
So next one, Eager Construct. 2 mana artifact creature. It's a 2/2 construct, and when Eager Construct enters the battlefield, each player scries 1. So I don't really like too much that it gives the opponent a scry, but still it's a 2 mana 2/2 that any deck can play, and you always scry yourself. So that's actually pretty decent. That's why I want to put tier 3.
Yeah, I would just put it in as an average tier 3 because I think to myself, okay, you scry, your opponent scry, you can just cross those 2 off from each other and say, okay, what is it? It's a 2/2 for 2, which is just a fine filler.
Exactly.
Next, we have Torch Gauntlet. For 2 mana, we get a piece of equipment which states that equipped creature gets +2/+0 with an equip cost of 2. Once again, I don't think this equipment is going to cut it. I don't think it's enough. Essentially, you're paying 4 mana to give that creature +2/+0 with the potential to later do it again, but you got to put mana into it again. I don't really like it. Just put it aside.
So, Consulate Skygate. 2 mana artifact creature, a 0/4 wall with defender and reach. So it can block flyers for 2 mana, but it doesn't do anything else. It's not enough, and just put it aside.
Yeah, it's a rookie mistake to think, but it can block so much stuff, but you know what? You want to be winning the game, and just having a 0-power creature is not going to be doing enough. It's just sitting there. It can't even crew a vehicle. Speaking of vehicles, the next card is very exciting. We've got Renegade Freighter. For 3 mana. It's a vehicle. It's a 4/3. And whenever this guy attacks, it gets +1/+1 until the end of turn and trample. It's got crew of only 2, which means all your 2-drops can be used to equip, 2-drops, the ones that have power 2 or more, will be able to equip this freighter, or of course 2 creatures of power 1 is also possible. Super strong. This thing's going to be attacking as a 5/4 trampler. That is sick for only 3 mana.
Yeah, I just really like it because you tap a 2-power creature and attack with a 5/4 trampler, and even if they multi-block it and then it kills a couple things and it dies itself, but the 2 mana creature is still on the battlefield. It still survived.
Yeah, it won't die.
Exactly, and that's what I really like about these vehicles too.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very strong. I like it that it gives your lower powered creatures late game also something to do. You know, they can just be used to crew this thing. Very strong. Yeah, I love it. Great. What's the next one?
Workshop Assistant. 3 mana artifact creature, a 1/2 construct, and when he dies, you can return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So it gets another artifact, and there will be a lot of artifacts. So there'll probably be target, but still it's a 3 mana 1/2, and it won't actually do anything except getting it back.
Yeah.
I don't think that's good enough.
No, if it would do it when it enters the battlefield, that might have been a different story, but this now you gotta wait for it to die, and that just takes longer as well.
Exactly, you have to play around that and just put aside because of that, because there are too many things.
Just take another Renegade Freighter. That's
exactly.
Next card, we have Self-Assembler for 5 mana. We get a 4/4 Assembly Worker. It's an artifact creature as well. And when this guy enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an Assembly Worker creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. So what does this guy do? Look for another version of itself, because that's the only one that's in this set. So you gotta have multiples of these. Still, for 5 mana, a 4/4, which can be played in no matter what color you are, is an excellent filler card, actually.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. And if you have multiples, you can just search them up.
Then that's just gravy.
Exactly. Then it just gets better and better.
But even if you don't, still very acceptable filler card.
Yeah. So, Aradara Express, 5 mana, an 8/6 vehicle with menace and crew 4. So the crew 4 will be more difficult to get. That's why I don't want to put it in tier 2, but 8/6 with menace is really good.
Yeah.
But late game you'll just get things killed, they'll trade, and then 4 power is actually maybe pretty difficult to get on the table. And that's why at tier 3, if you really need a big thing, then put that in, else play something else.
Yeah, I kind of see this card as being your, let's say a bomb that comes in, say turn 6 or turn 7, and you can just attack with it, because essentially this early on turn 5 you pop it down, and then turn 6 when you attack, you may be hard pressed to find that crew 4. You know, crew 3 I still see that very easily being possible. Crew 4 is going to be tough. On the other hand, it may be worth the effort to get that crew 4 on the battlefield by not trading your creatures and taking more damage stuff, because after all, when an 8/6 menace attacks, that's going to be really tough for your opponent to deal with. So I think it's kind of one of those high risk, high reward cards that if it does pan out, man, it's going to be winning the game. Other times it may sit there right when you're going to want to attack, they instant speed remove one of your creatures, and you've got 1 power too little, and then you're just sitting there going, my Aradara Express has been held up at this station. Terrible. All right, next card. Accomplished Automaton for 7 mana. This is kind of what we're talking about, this hefty price. It's a filler bomb. It's an artifact creature construct. It's a 5/7 with Fabricate 1. So essentially you could say, okay, well, it's a 6/8. Really big. You can attack with it. It's a beater. Then again, you do need the 7 mana. And if you're not going to be running any acceleration, it's going to take a while to get there. It's going to take a lot longer to get from 6 to 7 mana than it's going to take from 5 to 6 mana. So remember that as well. But then, yeah, once it's on the battlefield, then it's going to be tough for your opponents to deal with it.
Yeah,
Filler.
It's still 6 and power and 8 toughness. So still, if you don't have any better bombs, just play this one.
It's a filler for the end of your card.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the last one of the commons. Let's have a look at the uncommons.
So the first uncommon is Sequestered Stash. It's a land that can tap for colorless, and for 4 mana and tap, sacrifice Sequestered Stash. You can put the top 5 cards of your library into your graveyard, and you may put an artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. I don't like the on top of your library part, and it's an artifact. If it was a creature, then you can always get your bomb back for kind of for free, but it is not, and not always is your artifact your bomb or anything you really need. So that's why I just put aside.
Yeah. If you have one of the Gear Hulks, then probably throw it in.
Yeah, I mean, kill a Gearhulk and then get it back.
Exactly.
That's really good.
Next card is Aether Hub. It's a land that taps for colorless mana, and also when it enters the battlefield, you get an energy counter. You can also tap it and pay an energy counter to get 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I say, yeah, tier 3, just put it in. You don't want too many of these, but I mean, it does come in untapped, so you can use it right away for a colorless mana. And at least one time, it'll give you that mana that you require of that particular color. If you got more energy, you can do it multiple times. Otherwise, you could use the energy for something else as well. I think an acceptable tier 3 filler.
Yeah, it's a free energy that can actually use it, get any color of mana, so that's actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
So the Concoction module, it's 2 mana artifact. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get an energy counter, and for 4 mana tap, you can return target creature you control to its owner's hand. So this is actually pretty interesting. For 2 mana, all the creatures that come onto your battlefield create an energy counter for you, which is actually pretty good. And then for 4 mana and tap it, you can get a creature back to your hand. So with all the enter battlefield things, it triggers again, and you can save your bomb from a removal spell.
Yeah, so you say interesting and pretty good. I completely disagree. It is fascinating and freaking amazing.
Yeah, but still 4 mana to get it back.
Yeah, so but you can use it later. In the meantime, it's just sitting there. Creatures are coming in. Remember those artifact tokens, those creatures, those are also creatures. Yeah. So you're getting multiple energy counters from that. I mean, yeah, this is just so strong. Early and later on, is you've got a mana sink every turn. You can pop something in, maybe with Fabricate or an Enter the Battlefield ability. Yeah, I think it's really amazing.
It's really good. Yeah, it's still a tier 2.
It's still for me. It's still a tier 2. It's colorless, so that means it's auto include in every deck.
Yeah, it's a really good card that can just do anything you want, really.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a good card. Tier 2.
Absolutely amazing. Next card, we have Perpetual Timepiece for 2 mana. It's an artifact. We can tap it to put the top 2 cards of your library into our graveyard. And we get to pay. We can also pay 2 mana and exile this card to shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library. Okay, so you can mill yourself, and then later on you can reshuffle some cards back from your graveyard into your library. I mean, that's really not what you want to be doing in Limited. We can go into it at length probably. We probably should do that in the comment section because I don't want to talk about this card too much more. Just don't play it. Put it aside.
The next one, Contraband Kingpin. A blue and a black. It's a 1/4 Etherborn Rogue with lifelink. And whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. So all the fabricates that make an artifact, you get to scry 1, and a 1/4 with lifelink is actually not bad at all for 2 mana.
Yeah.
Because the lifelink is pretty interesting. It's really it will actually matter later because it will block a lot of things.
Exactly, and will survive. So every time will gain you an extra life.
Yeah.
And if it's attacking, then every time it's a 2-point life strength because you're doing 1 point damage. You're gaining 1, so it's actually pretty. And it's only 2 mana. Remember that is really cheap.
And its scry 1 is really important too.
It's a nice little bonus actually.
Yeah, so tier 2.
Absolutely.
If you're black and blue, just play it.
And if you got a couple of these kind of guys, we know what color you're in. Not unlike a Voltaic Brawler for a red and a green, we get a 3/2 Human Warrior. And this guy also enters the battlefield with 2 energy counters, so that's a nice little bonus. If you look 3/2 for 2 mana, that is already really nice. Nice little deal you got there. And also, whenever this guy attacks, you may pay 1 energy counter, and if you do, it gets +1/+1 and trample until the end of the turn. So 2 times, this guy is going to be a 4/3 trampler on the attack. How hard is that going to be to stop? Really hard. And especially if you got some extra energy coming from elsewhere, then this thing is going to be doing tons of damage.
Yeah, on turn 3 it's a 4/3 attacker with trample, so that's really good.
Yeah, the trample means that evasion means it's going to be getting through, doing lots of damage. We don't want to throw their 1/1 servos in front of this, so it will deal lots of damage. For an aggressive strategy, it's a perfect card.
Exactly. Next one, Veteran Motorist. A red and a white, a 3/1 dwarf pilot, and when Veteran Motorist enters the battlefield, scry 2, and whenever a Veteran Motorist cruise a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Well, it's a 2 mana 3/1, which isn't bad. I don't really like that 1 toughness, as I said before, but still, when he enters the battlefield, you can also scry 2, and that's really nice for 2 mana. And the crew is not really too important most of the time, so that's just gravy, and still a tier 3 because it's a good filler.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the scry 2 is essentially like drawing a card, so it essentially replaces itself in theory. Once again, with all these servos, I don't like the 1 toughness either. However, the 3 power means it can equip pretty much everything.
Yeah, it can crew.
It can crew pretty much everything, and it will stay safe. On the other hand, you do need that vehicle to get the most value out of it. But yeah, if you're already in red and white, it's not a bad card just already for the Scry 2 to be a good filler.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scry 2, 3 power body.
Yeah, we can do some damage with it.
Yeah.
Fabrication module is next for 3 mana. It's an artifact, and it states that whenever you get 1 or more energy counters, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. You can also pay for, tap it, and then get an energy counter. So essentially what it also says there is pay for, tap it, get an energy counter, and put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Naturally, it works very well with the other module. This one I think is a little bit less powerful, but you know, if you got enough sources of energy, I think it's a pretty decent filler. And it's a filler anyway, because of course, just paying the 4 mana and tapping it, you can get the energy and the counters. You don't need other sources of energy to make it work.
Yeah, it's I like it because it pumps in late game, and if you have a lot of energy things, it just pumps them up.
Instant speed as well.
So yeah, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So next one, Filigree Familiar, 3 mana, a 2/2 artifact creature. When Filigree Familiar enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. If Filigree Familiar dies, you can draw a card. So it's a 2/2 for 3, which isn't exciting, but you gain 2 life, and when he dies, you can draw a card, which isn't that bad. So just put it in as a filler.
Yeah, it's a tiny little brother of Pelakka Worm, so this would be Pelakka Fox. Yeah, it's small, 2 life, may not seem like a lot, but it is. For just 3 mana, you get and the 2/2, and the life, and the card when it draws, and when it dies. So I do think it'll actually pull its weight, and I don't feel bad playing this at all, especially when you're in multiple colors. This one you'll be able to cast reliably, which I think is worth something too.
Yeah.
Then we have a Foundry Inspector for 3 mana. It is a 3/2 construct. It's also an artifact creature. And artifact spells you cast cost 2 mana. Oh, sorry, 1 mana less to cast. I'm getting too overexcited. So this guy, yeah, pretty good filler. Naturally, there's plenty of artifacts. There's not as many artifact spells as there are just artifacts that get created with fabrication, etc. So it will be less valuable, I think, during limited. However, still, just paying the 3 mana for a 2/3 is an okay filler with potential upside that the artifact you may draw into will be a little bit cheaper. I think in constructed a lot stronger. I think in limited, okay filler.
Whirler Maker, a 3 mana artifact, and for 4 mana tap it, create a 1/1 colorless top the artifact creature with flying. It's for 3 mana and then 4 mana 1/1. Every turn a 1/1 flyer is not that bad, but is it enough? And I don't think it's enough, and that's why I put it aside.
Yeah, it's, of course, if you got the other modules with it, then of course it's a nice little bonus to be able to create this thing and to get the energy, get the counters, get all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, but you need a lot of things.
But it's just, I just don't think you're going to have the pieces for it. And if you do, I don't think you're going to be able to draw them all at the same time. And if you do, you won't be able to cast them all at the same time. So just put it aside. It's just too many ifs, ands, buts, and also coconuts.
Well, if you have all the modules, then you're winning anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Even without this one.
Yeah, it's just too much. It asks too much, this one. Next one is Chief of the Foundry. For 3 mana, we get a 2/3 artifact creature. This is a construct. I think the mana-wise, power and toughness, it's right on curve. It's fine. And it also states that other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. Now, in this set, because of all the servos and thopters and other artifact creatures we've got, I think that the +1/+1 is actually going to be quite sizable. And I would like to put this in tier 2. Because, yeah, I think you should pretty much always include it, especially when you can build around it a little bit. And remember that your vehicles, when they attack and they recruit, they're also artifact creatures. So they will also benefit from this +1/+1.
Yeah, and they're in all the colors they are fabricated, if I'm correct. So there will be things that make artifact creatures, and that's why I just want to put it in tier 2, because there's always things that it pumps up.
Yeah, and even if they don't have it in the particular color, there are still artifacts. You know, that are just colors you can cast. Those are artifact creatures, and you can just use those vehicles as well. Awesome, very strong.
So the next one, Whirler Virtuoso. Virtuoso. 1 mana blue and a red, a 2/3 Verdalken Artificer, and when he enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters, and you can pay 3 energy counters to create a 1/1 colorless top the artifact creature with flying. So for 3 mana, you get a 2/3 and a 1/1 flyer. So that's actually not bad at all. And if you have mana left over, you can make more Topters.
Yeah.
And I like it because it doesn't have to tap or use mana or anything. So I would put it in tier 2.
Yeah. If you don't look at any of the other ways that you could get energy, just saying for 3 mana, I'm gonna have a 2/3 and a 1/1 flyer. That's a really good deal.
Exactly.
Very strong. Imperial Voyager for a colorless or genetic a green and a blue. So the same price, but now with green and blue, we get a 2/3 Vidalcan Scout this time. This guy's got flying and trample, and whenever this guy deals combat damage to a player, we get that much energy counters, that many energy counters. That is really, really sick. I think this is even stronger than the World of Virtuoso. Being able to be in the air, attacking, getting 2 energy, maybe more if you would pump it or something, but let's say reliably 2 energy every turn. It's got the evasion. It's got double evasion because it's got the flying and the trampling. So yeah, really sick, really strong. I say if you're in green and blue, you have to include it, and if you're not, try and find a way to include it. But anyway, because it's really, really strong.
Yeah, because there's not many things that can block it in the air.
So early as well, huh? So early.
That's what is really good about it, because it'll nearly always give you the energy counter.
Awesome, yeah. And if you have a combat trick, and you do get through with it, maybe you get a ton of energy, you can pump it into something else, great.
Yeah.
Of course, the only thing why this doesn't push it into tier 1 that you're always going to try and build around is it doesn't have a sink for the energy. It's only creating the energy.
It won't actually win you the game. It's really nice to help you get there, but it won't win you the game on its own.
No, it's a very strong card though,
it is.
Make no mistake.
So next one, Unlicensed Disintegration. It's a 1 red and a black, an instant, destroy target creature. If you control an artifact, Unlicensed Disintegration deals 3 damage to that artifact's creature's controller. So for 3 mana, unconditional removal, so tier 1. But if you have an artifact, you also deal 3 damage to an opponent. And you'll probably have an artifact. So you kill a creature for 3 mana, then deal 3 damage to the controller. So that's really nice.
And it's instant speed.
Yeah.
How good is this removal? It is unfathomable. It is really, really strong. You try and be in black and red, or at least have splash for one of those 2 colors when you have the other one, because this is just so powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Then we go on to Iron League Steed. For 4 mana, we get a 2/2 artifact creature. And this guy's got haste and fabricate 1. So essentially what it says, for 4 mana, we got a 3/3 with haste, or of course 2/2, a little servo guy. But let's say 3/3 with haste. Yeah, it's okay. You know, I mean, you get in some damage. Otherwise, you've got 2 chump blockers for 4. It's okay. Plus, of course, it's colorless mana, so you can put it in any deck. It's okay. It's just okay.
Yeah. It's not too exciting, but still 3/3 for 4 mana with haste. It's not bad at all.
It's okay.
Yeah. So Smugglercopter, 4 mana, a 3/2 Topter with flying and haste. So still the 4 mana 3/2 with flying is pretty good, and it has haste, so that's also pretty good. But we saw a lot of 2 power things already, so so probably die pretty fast because it's 4 mana, so that's why I put it tier 3.
Yeah, but I think this one's high. Whereas the Iron League Steed, that's just average filler. I think this is a high filler for me. It's one of the first ones I'm going to be looking at when filling out my curve. Why? Because essentially, I mean, the Iron League Steed does 3 damage haste. This one as well. Plus, it's got the evasion to boot. So there's nothing to sniff at. I kind of like it. This is a decent filler.
Exactly. This is one of the better fillers.
One of the better fillers, absolutely. Then we have Oval Chase Dragster. I never thought I'd see a card in Magic that had the word Dragster on it, but okay. For 4 mana, it's another vehicle. This one is a 6/1 Trampler Haste with Crew 1. So essentially what this thing is it says 1 time incapacitate one of your creatures to deal 6 points of damage. That's essentially what it does, and this is kind of like that Fire Axe spell for 5 mana, deal 5 points of damage.
There are a couple.
There's
creatures.
More.
Creatures.
Oh, there's of creatures that do it as well.
6/1 with haste, trample, and then you have to sacrifice it.
It's guaranteed damage, but the problem is then it doesn't do anything anymore. So you're wasting that card while somebody else has used that slot for a creature that might deal damage over multiple turns. And I just don't think it's going to be able to get the value of the card back over the course of the game in limited. So I'm going to say put it aside.
Yeah, because if you look at the Smugglercopter and the Oval Chase Dragster, I think I like the Smugglercopter a lot better because it has potential to do a lot more damage.
Yeah.
and this one doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next one, Beaumont Bazaar Barge. It's a 4 mana 5/5 vehicle.
This is one of those boats that you have to bike in. It's one of the bicycle boats I was talking about.
That's a really big bicycle boat.
You need a couple of people. You need a couple of people in there.
We need a pool of 3.
At least.
Pool of 3. And when he enters the battlefield, you can draw a card.
Okay.
So if he plays itself, a pool of 3 isn't that bad. Plus, it's a 5/5. So that's actually pretty good. So just put it in tier 3, a good filler.
Yeah, and actually 5 is going to be enough to do most of the damage to kill things. In combo, we've seen there's not a lot of stuff that can survive 5 power. Plus, as well, the crew 3 we discussed already. Crew 4 is going to be tough to get, but crew 3, I think, reliably we will be able to reach. So, and replacing itself, so you don't feel bad if you play it and somebody needs to play a removal spell because you got that card back.
Yeah,
very good filler. Restoration Gearsmith for 4 mana, of which 1 white and 1 black. We have a 3/3 Human Artificer, so already for 4 mana, 3/3 decent. I'm okay with that. And whenever this guy enters the battlefield, return target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, this is really strong. This is not returning just an artifact to the top of our library. This actual advantage is it allows us to pick whether from our best artifact or our best creature that was removed, so we can get our bomb. Almost always we'll be able to get our bomb back later in the game. Plus the body is very decent. The price is nice. I think this pushes me into white and black if I get it, and otherwise, yeah, auto include. It's a tier 2.
Exactly. It's just it does a lot of things, and that's really nice. So Hazardous Conditions. 2 a black and a green sorcery. Creatures with no counters on them get -2/-2. This one will be pretty awkward.
Yeah.
Because with all the fabricate, a lot of creatures will have counters. It will kill a lot of things, but you have to play around it, and the opponent can also play around it.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like about this. Put it tier 3 as a filler because it's still a good card, but you have to pay think about it that the opponent can also play around it with all the fabricates.
Exactly. I mean, you may think to yourself, hey, but I can build my deck around it. I have all the fabricates. But the problem is they can also have a lot of that stuff. And then you're up a creek without a paddle with this spell. So, yeah, it could pan out, but it could also not tier 3.
Yeah, because all the fabricates aren't bad cards.
No, they're not rare either. No, a lot of commons.
So you have a lot of fabricates on the table, and that's what makes it awkward.
Exactly. Next, we have Ballistic Charger for 5 mana. We get a 6/6 vehicle. When this guy attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. That's pretty cool. With a crew 3. So once again, I think this one's very decent. Decent crew price. And then of course a 6/6 that first bing does 1 point of damage to the target creature or player. In this case, they may want to block your 6/6 with a 1/1 servo. You declare attackers, you first kill that servo by dealing a point of damage, and then they have to block with something that's maybe more sizable they don't want to lose. And pretty much nothing will survive an encounter with this Ballistic Charger.
Exactly. So next one, Cloud Blazer.
Oh, tier 2. Tier 2.
Yeah.
But it's on the screen, so.
Next one, Cloud Blazer. 3 blue and white. It's a 2/2 human scout with flying. And when he enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. So that's really nice. 5 mana 2/2 body isn't that exciting, but it's flying and you get cards and you get 2 life. So I think that makes up for it, and just put in tier 2.
Yeah, really strong. I mean that little pup, that Pelaka fox. I forget what its actual name is now. That for 3 mana 2/2 when it dies, you have a card, gain 2 life. This one gains you also 2 life. Costs a little bit more, but drawing those 2 cards when it comes in rather than when it dies, big difference. Plus evasion in the air. Awesome. I really like this this card. Next card, Engineered Might for 5 mana, of which 1 green and 1 white. We get a sorcery. We get to choose only one. Either target creature gets +5/+5 and gains trample until the end of turn, or creature you control get +2/+2 and gain vigilance against the end of turn. So you can either make one thing big, or make your entire army of small servos sizable and attack with it. The problem is, of course, that its sorcery speed is not instant speed. Otherwise, I would say auto include that. However, the sorcery speed, people see it coming a mile away, and they can either take damage from the 5/5 or, well, they just know. They just know what's happening, so they can make that decision at that point in time. However, I think the power boost is so big that it would still find a place as a filler card if you're in green and in white anyway.
Yeah, I think in this set you'll go pretty wide, so with all the fabricate and stuff, and that's why I think the +2/+2 efficiency will actually help a lot. And if you don't, you can still give the +5 and trample, and that choice that you can make yourself is what I like about this card.
Yeah, but just the fact that it's sorcery speed, it's very unfortunate.
Exactly.
Very unfortunate.
So the last uncommon, Demolition Stomper, 6 mana with a 10/7 vehicle, and it cannot be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, but it has a crew 5. And that's a lot.
It's too much, yeah.
Exactly, and that's why I put tier 3, because if you can make it work, make it work.
Yeah.
But else, don't play it. I mean, it's still, if you really need the big thing, then this is actually a big thing.
Yeah, it's kind of comparable to a creature with evasion in the sense, well, it does have a form of evasion in the sense that when the board is all blocked up, you've got 2 2s, 3 3s, 2 3s all on the ground, it's just impossible to attack with your smaller creatures. Yeah, then you may be able to crew this thing, and then all those creatures on the opposing side won't be able to stop it, and it wins you the game. What if the problem is, what if the game goes a lot slower? You don't have that crew 5, and then you do invest 6 mana into this, and your opponent's doing something maybe a lot crappier than that, but they can actually use their creatures that they're playing, and then you're going to be losing. So it's just a filler because, again, one of those cards, yeah, I got nothing at the top of my curve, I might as well put in this card. But don't try and build around it or anything like that.
Exactly.
That was the last of the uncommons. Let's have a look at the rares. We're going to start strong with a really awesome land, and that is Inventors Fair. It's a legendary land. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more artifacts, you gain 1 life. Okay. Also, you can tap it for a colorless mana. Okay, good. Doesn't come in tap, so it's fine. But it has a very cool ability. If you pay 4 mana and tap this guy, so essentially for 5 lands, 5 mana, you get to sacrifice this guy, then search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, and then put it into your hand and shuffle your library. Now, you can only do this if you control 3 or more artifacts. I don't think that's unrealistic to be able to do that, especially late game, which is when you're going to be wanting to do this, when you're going to be searching for that bomb artifact creature or that super powerful artifact that's going to be winning you the game. Inventors Fair does that. Should you not need to do that, then it still just taps for mana like any other land, which, well, actually only does colorless, so that might be a little bit problematic. But very, very strong. I don't see a situation where you don't want to include this in the card if you run any artifacts whatsoever. I say Inventors Fair would be tier 2.
Yeah, I think the gaining a life is also pretty relevant because it's limited, you have a bit of board stall, you have artifact, and it just keep on gaining you life without you having doing anything.
It might. I think 1, maybe it would have been 2, I would have been a little bit more impressed. That 1 seems very, very little, but yeah, it could be. Absolutely.
It's still a free life without any doing anything.
Exactly. You're absolutely right.
You're only doing things you want, like playing things.
Yeah.
So that's just a free life, and that's I think pretty relevant.
Yeah, and probably with about 2 cards which have fabricate, then you'll probably already have enough artifacts to let it go off. Yeah, absolutely.
So next one we have a cycle of fast lands. Then they enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. So if it's the first, second, or third land, then it comes untapped. Else it comes tapped, and they all tap for 2 colors. So we have the first one, Concealed Courtyard. It's a white and a black. And you want to do the next one?
Yeah, I suppose. Next one, Blooming Marsh. That one will give you black or green.
And we have Inspiring Vantage, and it will give you red or white.
We have Botanical Sanctum, which gives you either green or blue.
So the next one is the last one of the cycle, Inspired Buff Kennel. It's a blue or red.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the rare lands. Yeah, the fast lands, enemy colored fast lands. Then we move on to a very nice artifact that is Animation Modules, one of the module set. For 1 mana, it's an artifact, and whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are placed on permanents you control, you may pay a generic mana, and if you do, create a 1/1 colorless servo creature artifact token. It also has pay 3, tap it, and then choose a counter on target permanent or player, and then give that permanent or player another counter of that kind. So remember, energy counters also count for this. So pretty cool. It works very well with modules, but it also works very well by itself because there's a lot of ways of getting +1/+1 counters, and this one just turns those into an additional mana. We get a nice little servo guy to come in onto the battlefield. And of course, later on, you could just make more energy counters or more +1/+1 counters, whatever we feel like doing at instant speed.
Yeah, and for 1 mana, you don't lose much. And I really like the modules just work together really well. So I really am excited to play with the modules.
Yes, but even if you don't have all the modules, this module works very well.
Exactly.
The last one we discussed works very well by itself.
Yeah, so it's a really good tier 2 card. So next one, Smugglercopter. 2 mana, 3/3 vehicle with flying, and when he attacks or blocks, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card, and it has a crew cost of 1. So 3/3 flyer for 2 with a crew cost of 1, and if you attack or block, you can rummage.
No, you may draw a card and then discard a card.
So this one is loot.
It is loot, yeah.
So
it's so good.
It is really good.
Yeah.
So just when you draw this, play it.
Yeah,
just
and the
play
flavor is amazing. I mean, he's a smuggler cop, so he's looting because he's smuggling. Get it? It's great. He only needs a crew of 1, so that even the most tiniest little servo you can throw in there to go and go to town. It is really, really amazing. I mean, I can't imagine a time when I open this and I don't just immediately throw it in.
Exactly, because with a crew of 1, that's really easy.
Yeah.
And with the power of 3 in the air, it can kill nearly everything. It can
Toughness
nearly kill all the big things in the air.
Amazing card. Tier 2, absolutely. If you are playing Magic, it is an auto include. Alright, there we have Key to the City is next for 2 mana. It's an artifact. We can tap it to discard a card, and then up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. Okay, so we make 1 creature unblockable, which is pretty cool. And then whenever this Key to the City becomes untapped, you may pay 2 mana, and then if you do, you draw a card. That's pretty nice. So every turn we will basically rummage now in this case, because we discard a card and then later draw a card. So what we do is for 2 mana, we rummage and we make one of our guys unblockable. I think that's a pretty good deal, actually.
Yeah, because it's really nice to just get your bomb unblockable, and then you're not actually losing the card, because next turn when you are tapping, you can pay 2 mana, which isn't that much for a card to get it back. So that's actually really good.
Very nice. Absolutely great tier 2 card.
So Deadlock Trap, 3 mana artifact. Deadlock Trap enters the battlefield tapped, and when he enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters. You can pay an energy counter and tap it to tap target creature or planeswalkers. Its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. So for 3 mana, you get 2 energy counters, and then you can't even activate it. This turn, you have to wait a turn to activate it, and then it doesn't activate its abilities, which it doesn't want to put in, because stopping planeswalkers is nice, but if you don't draw it or anything, it won't do anything.
Not relevant.
So just put aside, totally, because it won't be relevant enough.
And you're paying so much just to be able to tap a creature twice, let's say in this case, and so now they can't use their ability. And what if they can react to you doing this and then use their ability as a reaction to it, and then you still didn't stop them?
Exactly.
Terrible. She's in the picture. You can also see she's angry. Chandra is angry about this card. Then we have next one, Dynabolt Tower for 3 mana. It's an artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get 2 energy counters, and you can pay 5 energy counters. And is that 5? Yeah, 5 energy counters and tap it, and then it deals 3 damage to a creature or player. Once again, a lot of hoops you got to jump through. If you do think you're going to have so much, I mean, you can't do it right away because you're just not getting enough energy. And if you do have other sources of energy, you probably got other better stuff you want to put your energy into it. And I just don't think that this is going to be possible. You need to jump through too many hoops to make this card do anything. I think it's going to feel bad. So just put it aside.
Yeah, it's better in constructed because then you can play a lot of instant sorceries, but limited, you can't really play that many instant sorceries.
Yeah, I mean the metallurgical summonings, that one is so incredibly powerful that you can start playing a lot more instant sorceries because you're also getting creatures for it. But this one doesn't. This one's only giving you the energy.
Exactly. So because the difference is that will actually help you survive, and this one doesn't really help you survive immediately. No. It will take you a couple instant sorceries to actually do something.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're probably using those instant sorceries, removing those creatures anyway.
Yeah. So, Electrostatic Pummeler. 3 mana 1/1 construct, and when he enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters, and you can pay 3 energy counters to give it +X until end of turn, where X is its power. So it doesn't have trample, because if you pump it up and then use it, that would be actually pretty cool. But it doesn't even have that, and it's a 1/1, which will make it a 2/2.
Yeah.
So just put it aside.
Exactly. So that means that you need other cards to make it good, and once again, in limited, we want these cards to have value on their own.
Yeah.
And this one just doesn't have that. So put it aside. Yeah.
Exactly, and then you can only use it once. So
exactly. No, unfortunate. Then we have Cultivators Caravan for 3 mana. It is a vehicle. This one is a 5/5, and we can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So remember, this guy is not a creature when it comes in, because it's just a vehicle, so we can right away tap it to give us that mana of any color. So for 3 mana, nice little mana ramp.
unless you crew it immediately.
Unless you crew it for 3 mana, which
for
you
3 power.
Sorry, for 3 power. Sorry, not mana. I don't know why it's so difficult. For 3 power, we're gonna crew. I'm just so excited about the vehicles. I wish it was for all kinds of different stuff, but really it has to be for 3 power. Then this guy can attack as a 5/5. So the versatility of this card is amazing. At the beginning of the game, it's mana ramping you, it's mana fixing you, it's doing all the stuff you want to do. Later on in the game, when you've got all your mana, you got a couple of creatures, we'll just tap 3 power worth of creatures, and then this guy's swinging in as a 5/5. Awesome. Very, very strong. Will do well in any color combination that you're playing. Tier 2.
Yeah, it's something you have to think about, because if you crew it the first time, you cannot tap it for mana anymore.
Yeah.
For the first turn.
Yeah.
So you have to watch out for that.
But if you're crewing it, you're crewing it because you want to be attacking with it.
Too.
Yeah. So you can't do that anyway when it comes in, because it's got summoning sickness.
So next one, the Pala Pilot Exemplar. It's a 1 red and a white. It's a 3/3 dwarf pilot, and other dwarfs you control get +1/+1. And each vehicle you control get +1/+1 as long as it's a creature. And whenever it becomes tapped, you can pay X, and if you do, reveal the top X cards for your library, put all dwarfs and vehicle cards from among them into your hand, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it helps you search for your vehicles and your dwarfs, but it isn't really that exciting, because it doesn't. You really need to have vehicles, you need to have dwarfs.
You need to have a lot of them.
Yeah, so just put it tier 3. It's a good card. If you have a lot of dwarf, a lot of vehicles, then it gets a lot better. But if you don't, it's still a tier 3.
Still tier 3, still okay
Yeah.
filler. I mean, and yay commander, right?
Exactly.
Next card, Cabal Console of Allocation for 3 mana, of which 1 has to be white and 1 has to be black. We have a Human Advisor. This guy is a 2/3, so I mean, it's okay, it's fine body. And whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. I mean, in Limited, of course, people are going to be playing mostly creatures, but they will also have to have instant sorceries for their removal, which will be a share of their deck. And for every time they do that, they're going to have to pay, they're going to lose the 2 life, and you're going to gain 2 life. So probably the first target is probably going to be this guy for the removal spell. But then again, it's a nice little magnet.
Exactly, you have a lightning rod for the removal, plus it will cost them 2 life, you will gain 2 life.
Yeah.
And for 3 mana, you get a 2/3 anyway. So
nice
that's actually
little protection
pretty good.
for your bombs. Absolutely, very, very good.
So the next one is Raptor Ori. It's a 4 mana artifact, and each player may play an additional land on each of his or her turns. In the beginning of each player's upkeep, if the player has no cards in hand, the player draws 3 cards. So it's really nice if you have an aggressive strategy, but if you don't, then the opponent also gets that help of the additional land, and then if they play the hand out, they get 3 cards, and if you don't have an empty hand, then you don't draw them, and you're just helping the opponent. And that's why I just want to put it aside, because you're also paying 4 mana to play this.
Yeah, essentially what we did before about the scry 1 for your opponent and yours, you can just cross out those benefits that are for both players, because you don't know what they're going to be playing.
Exactly.
You can say, oh, but I'll be playing aggressive. They could be playing even more aggressive. You don't know that. So you have to cross those out. So essentially what you're saying is, we have no benefit from this card except it costs us 4 mana and a card.
Yeah.
That's just not good enough.
No.
No, not good enough.
4 mana and a card for doing nothing.
That's just not gonna cut it. So next one we have Flux Reservoir for 4 mana. We have an artifact, and whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. And you can pay 50 life, because we just have that lying around.
Yeah.
And then Flux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So essentially what it says is, if you can get above 51 points of damage, then you can win of life. Then you can win the game. But you know what? You're gonna have to jump through a whole lot of hoops, and plus we haven't really seen a lot of creatures that have lifelink, because that's of course the most efficient way to get life, just punching somebody with a 6/6 lifelinker. But then again, you're winning the game anyway. So what? I don't really understand what this card wants to do. Well, I know what it wants to do. Cast all these spells, multiple smaller spells to gain a lot of life and then kill your opponent. But I don't see that happening before you're dead.
Yeah, in limited, it's not good enough, and just put it aside.
Yeah.
So we have Fleet Wheel Cruiser. It's 4 mana, 5/3 vehicle with trample and haste. When it enters the battlefield, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So it means it's a 4 mana, 5/3 with trample and haste, and you don't have to crew this. And the crew isn't that bad either. It's a 2 power crew. So that's actually not bad at all. For 4 mana at 3 toughness will be a bit awkward sometimes, but I think a 5 power with trample is good enough.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just makes it into the tier 2.
Yeah.
If it would have something that's a little bit worse, then it would definitely be a tier 3. But the way that it is, I see it as being very beneficial. I mean, you don't have to sacrifice it at the end. That's the 6/1, for example, and it could survive. And later on, that crew 2. That's very doable.
Yeah.
Very doable. Absolutely. Then we have Harmonic for 4 mana. It's an artifact, and if an artifact creature enters the battlefield causing a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, then that ability triggers an additional time. So basically all your enter the battlefield triggers are going to be going off twice, which is pretty cool with all the fabricates that we've got going on. Mm-hmm. So if you've got it, which you probably will, pretty decent filler. If you're saying, I really don't want to play that way, I'm going to be playing a lot of smaller creatures, very aggressive, I'm not going the fabricate route, or I just want to do all the vehicle stuff, that's also possible. Then, of course, just toss it aside. But with the amount of possibilities and enter the battlefield triggered abilities that creatures have in this set, I would say probably a pretty decent filler card.
Yeah, there will most likely always be a home for this card, because for all the fabricate, all these battlefield triggers, because there are a lot of them, and that's why I say put it tier 3, else I wouldn't have actually looked at it for limited.
Yeah, sure.
So Multiform Wonder, 5 mana, 3/3, it's a construct, and when you enter the battlefield you get 3 energy counters. And you can pay 1 to give it one of your choice of Flying, Vigilant, Lifelink,
Bless you.
one of those until end of turn. And you can pay an energy counter, and it gets +2, -2, or -2, +2 until end of turn.
This is a complicated card.
Yeah, but it does.
Options.
It's a multiform wonder. It has multiforms. It does everything you want.
Yeah.
But it will cost you energy counters. It will give you 3 anyways. So I like this card as a good filler. It isn't great because it will keep eating your energy, but it's good enough for filler.
Yeah, just as an example, for example, what you could do is you could, the first time you get to attack with it, you could pay a colorless to give it flying, and an energy counter to give it flying, and an energy counter to give it +2, -2, and then you are swinging in with an evasion creature that's a 5/1 if they don't have anything in the air, and that's pretty sweet actually.
Yeah.
And later on, it would just be a 3/3 that you can give vigilance, for example, or lifelink.
Exactly.
Sick. Yeah.
You don't even have to announce it. Like if it comes through, you can just pay the extra energy counter. Just give it lifelink.
Yeah. So just by itself, with its own 3 energy counters, I would say decent filler. 5 mana for a 3/3 may seem like it's very little, but as you saw already, we can instant speed pump its butt or pump its front. So it'll be able to take care of what it needs to take care of. It's a nice little surprise. If it would have more energy, then probably tier 2. But as it is, good filler.
Tier 3. Yeah.
Next we have Metalwork Colossus for 11 mana. We get a 10/10 artifact creature construct. This guy, however, costs X mana less to cast, where X is the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts you control. So those servos don't count anyway, even though they're tokens, so don't even count those. But when you've got Penn Harmonic on, for example, which you convert to mana cost 4, then that will reduce this thing by 4, making it 7 mana, which is still pretty expensive. But you can also sacrifice 2 artifacts and then return this guy from your graveyard back to your hand. So if you've got a heavy artifact strategy, then this guy's going to be doing tons and tons of damage. And of course, there's lots of ways to get to go more artifact heavy. I think this is a very strong bomb for your end game, and the fact that you can get it back later on because you're going so artifact heavy, so you can cast it cheaper. You will be able to get it back a number of times, and there your opponent won't be able to deal with it 2-3 times. Just too big.
Yeah, just to put it as a good tier 2, because they're good artifacts anyways, so you'll probably be able to play it pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So
and even if you don't, let's say you pay it, let's say you cast it for 7. Let's say you do cast it for 7.
Yeah, for
later
7,
on, that's
10,
still okay.
10.
That's still okay. You
Exactly.
pay them 10, and then you may have 2 or 3 artifacts. You
and then
get it back one more time.
Yeah, and then you can sacrifice your servos.
Yeah,
so
then
that's
you
actually
sacrifice those servos have a place then.
Yeah, so that's actually really good. So just put a good tier 2.
To good tier 2, absolutely. Yeah. That is the last one of the rares. Let's have a look at the mythics.
So the first mythic is Saheeli Y. It's 1 blue red. It's a planeswalker Saheeli with 3 loyalty counters, and a +1 is Quiet 1. Saheeli Y deals 1 damage to each opponent. A -2, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types, and that token gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. And the -7 is search your library for up to 3 artifact cards with different names, put them onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. So not looking at the ultimate, because that's always pretty good. The +1, the Squire one, is actually pretty decent, but it only deals 1 damage to opponent and not to a creature, so it doesn't really protect itself. So that's pretty risky. The -2 is actually pretty interesting with all the anti-battlefield ability. With all the fabricates, you get multiple bodies. You have to exile it at the beginning of the next end step, so that's a bit sad, but still, with all the anti-battlefield and fabricates,
and you can swing in with it, of course, because it's got haste.
Exactly, so that's actually pretty good. So you just put it in tier 2.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't. It's not tier 1. I mean, because this card just doesn't win you the game. You know, just nice if you're in those colors.
Exactly.
But it just doesn't, because it's because of the protection, lack of protection, etc.
Yeah, it also just needs other creatures, needs other things to win you.
Yeah, exactly. Next card is Aetherworks Marvel for 4 mana. It's a legendary artifact, and whenever a permanent you control is put into a graveyard, you get an energy counter. Now, a permanent can be a creature, enchantment, artifact, anything that's permanent on the table, land, for example. When it hits the graveyard, you get an energy counter. This includes your token creatures or token artifacts or whatever tokens you got, because they also hit the graveyard before they fizzle and disappear. So you will get an energy counter for those servos as well. You can also tap it and pay 6 energy counters, and then look at the top 6 cards of your library. We get to cast a card from among it without paying its mana cost. We'll put the rest of the bottom of the library in any order. So any card we get to play for free. That is cool because it's a way, it's a source, as we discussed already. The cards that are really good in this set are the ones that are a supply of energy and a sink of energy, somewhere we can put that energy and get value out of it. And this card does both really well.
Yeah, and things will die in the course of a game, and it's really nice because you can play things on instant speed. So that's actually pretty good. I mean, it's a risk, but at the top 6 cards, if you don't have anything good, then I think
what are you doing?
Exactly.
Tier 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So next one, Dolphinbahn. It's 2 blue and a white. It's a 3 loyalty planeswalkers and a +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature gets -3/-0, and its activated abilities cannot be activated. A -1 is you gain 2 life and draw a card, and a -7 is you get an emblem with your opponents can't untap more than 2 permanents during the untap step. So the plus gives something -3, so it kind of protects itself, and the -1 gives you 2 life and draws your card, which is actually really relevant. So I like this card because it draws you cards, it protects itself, just put tier 1.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great example of a card that will win you the game because the advantage of you getting it card-wise, life-wise, them not being able to attack, them not being able to use their best abilities on their creatures is going to be huge. And if they don't kill this thing fast, they're going to have a big problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Next card we have Me Eternities Crafter. For 4 mana, of which one has to be green, 1 blue. We get a 2/3 elf druid. So okay, the body's not too impressive, so this girl better have some good abilities. We're gonna have a look now. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card with converted mana cost less than the spell you cast, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. If it's not, then you get to reveal the card, put it into your hand. So either way, you're getting value out of this. Whenever you cast the first spell each turn, so you can't just keep casting spells, keep cascading into more stuff. Okay, but every turn you're basically getting another card, and you might actually get to play it for free, which is pretty sweet. I think this card will definitely give you the edge on your opponent. And yeah, if it's around on the battlefield for a few turns and you're playing spells, which you should be doing, then you're winning the game probably.
Yeah, and every instant you play on someone else's turn also just gives you a card.
True.
Nonetheless, and you don't have to play it, because if you don't play it, you just get it into your hand.
Yeah.
So that's such a good card.
Very strong.
Yeah.
Very strong. Yeah.
Yes.
Mythic for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the last one, Sky Overrain Console Flagship. 5 mana, 6/5 vehicle with flying. And when he enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker our opponent controls and accrue 3, which is a decent crew. And when he enters the battlefield, it just deals 3 damage outright to a creature or planeswalker. And every time he attacks, it's not to a player, but it will most likely kill anything, a lot of things while attacking, and then it hasn't dealt any damage.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a artifact version of the Inferno Titan,
Yeah.
kind of, dealing damage, coming in, dealing damage, and when it's attacking, dealing damage. We discussed already, crew 3 is very reasonable, very reasonable. You're going to be able to do that, and then Sky Sovereign will be able to deal tons and tons of damage, because remember that 6 damage, that's in the air. So this thing's got flying, and that is nothing to sniff at. Tier 1, you play it whenever you can, and you find some guys who are willing to jump in that thing, and then you just go to town, right?
Yeah,
shooting, because
exactly.
it must have some kind. I don't see it on the side. It's dealing 3 damage to the target creature or planeswalker every time it's attacked. It's got to have some kind of ballistic cannons on this thing, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't. Yes.
It looks very peaceful.
Yeah.
But it's really not.
It's a
really
console flagship.
This is the Starship Enterprise of this set, and I love it. All right, that is the last one of the Mythics. Let's have a look at the conclusion.
So conclusion, there are a lot of good artifact cards, a lot of cool vehicles, but remember there weren't a lot of commons that we saw in this section. So if you remember, they're all uncommon or rare. So that's one of the things you have to keep in mind. So you won't see them as much, but the things we saw were pretty good.
Yeah, and of course remember, it's always fun to have a tiny little servo that you can put into a little sky skiff that you can put into a train, which you can put into a bigger train, and that is of course super fun just to see if you can pull that off during the game. But all kidding aside, the uncommon multicolored cards are phenomenal. They're really strong. It's not surprising, I think, to open up your cards or your packs to look at it and see your multicolored cards and say, okay, I'm going to be building around these cards because they're all tier 2 at least, maybe 1 or 2 which are not, but they're usually very, very strong. And yeah, building around that wouldn't be so bad. Actually, adding a few vehicles on top of that. Stephen, you're absolutely right. A lot of the very strong, the best vehicles are uncommon and rare. However, we did see 2 common vehicles, which I would be perfectly happy throwing in any deck and going to town our opponent with the flying one or the train. They are just really, really strong, and I'm actually surprised at how powerful the artifacts are. Also, just some artifact creatures are just on curve. For example, for 4 mana you get a 3/3. That's not you don't usually get those kind of deals when it comes to artifacts that any deck can play. So remember, play them off and use them as good solid fillers, because there's also other cards that look for if you have artifacts, so you get extra benefit from that. I think it's a very exciting set. I'm actually surprised at how good I think the vehicles are. I didn't expect them to be as strong. I thought they were going to be kind of a trap for people. Oh, look, it's an 8/6 menace, trample, flying, hexproof. But you have to pay 18 crew. Let's see if you're going to be able to get that done. It's not like that at all. Most of them are very reasonably costed to cast, very reasonably costed to crew. So all in all, my conclusion for the entire set would be awesome.
Yeah, I
Very
really
cool.
like this set.
Yeah.
But we have to just play with it before we have to think say that crewing is good or bad, because
Agreed.
it will, maybe it won't pan out as we hope it does.
I think maybe this is not just for the crew thing. I think for everything that we've discussed so far, if you've joined us for the entire trajectory, or if you've just watched this video, remember, these are only our opinions. This is how we've looked at it compared to how other sets have done, how cards have done in the past. We haven't been able to play with it, and in the end, that is the only true test of how good cards are, how good they interact, what the synergy is like, and how the meta will develop. So remember that. Always take everything we say with a grain of salt, take the advice, and see what you do with it. And in the end, also most important thing is play how you enjoy playing the game. And if you want to play, if you want to put that servo in that airplane, in that boat thing, then you know what? You do that, because that's what we're here for. We're here to have fun.
I really want to drive my train with another train.
That would be the dream. That would be the dream. And you want to look for all the modules to keep creating concoctions and equipment and stuff, and in the end not do anything.
Yeah.
That would be perfect. Awesome. Well, also now, please subscribe, and it'll give you a notification when we're coming out with new videos. We got deck techs coming out. We got top 5 lists coming out. So please subscribe. You get a notification when those new things are coming out. Also, join us on Facebook and on Twitter. You can ask us questions. Of course, we react there. We might send you some, put some pictures up of good cards or some good combos that we might see. So join us there. That's it. Thanks for watching. I'm David.
I'm Stefan.
And this was Budget MTG Decks.